All right. Can someone tell me if it says it's recording?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, it's recording.
All right. Oops, that's not what we want. Let me find it. Nope. There we go. All right. Go ahead and open your terminal, and we're going to do some setup first. It makes life a lot easier. So the first thing you're going to do is npm and then init space -y, like that. Let me make this just a little bigger. Okay. And that's going to create a package.json for us. And this package.json allows us to run other things inside of our app. So the next thing we want to do is we're going to do npm I, which stands for install, space -D for development, and nodemon, nodemon. And then that's going to install real quick. And when it gets there, you'll see it has this dev dependency right here for nodemon. Give me a thumbs up when yours is installed and it shows up on your package JSON.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
It should look just like mine, nodemon 2.04.
Yep.
Gustavo?
Not quite.
Still installing?
I just realized. I'm sorry.
You just realized what?
I skipped your first thing. It was npm init.
-y. Yeah, if you skip the first thing, it won't work.
Oh, well, it looked like it did.
Oh, it'll install, but it won't have anywhere to install, so none of the commands that we need to modify will work.
Okay, should I just repeat number 2 then?
Yep, you gotta do it all over again.
Okay. So I made the directory to the JavaScript practice. I'm in there now. It's what was the next step? Sorry.
npm init -y.
Okay.
That's what gives us a package JSON. Once that is there, then you do npm I space -D space nodemon, nodemon.
Okay, I'm good.
Gustavo?
No, it opened a bunch of stuff.
Then let me see.
Alright.
Nope, that's called the node package. That's not the package. You didn't create a package JSON. So you did not do npm init -y.
Admit, right? ADMIT -y.
Init, INIT, init.
Oh.
And then npm -init.
npm init -y. And I don't see where you're typing, so I don't know if you're actually typing anything. So, but. And you can close out that package lock JSON. That won't do any good. Nope. From your actual, right there where you're looking at it, close it out. It's not NPP, it's NPM.
Okay.
Now close out the package lock JSON that you're looking at and go open the package JSON.
How would I close that?
With the X right there beside package lock JSON.
Oh,
There you go. Now go back into your folder and open the package JSON.
oh man.
All right, now you have to install npm I dash capital D nodemon, Nodemon. You're going to end up doing this thousands of times, millions of times probably.
Was npm I dash
Capital
nodemon?
D. I can't actually see it because Zoom's not letting me see the bottom of your deal, so I don't know what you're typing. Nodemon. Hit enter.
Okay.
And it'll pop up under your dev dependencies and it'll say 2.0.4. Chris, you got it?
Not quite. I'm almost there, but it's not opening up the JSON.
It won't automatically open the JSON for you. It'll create it. You just have to go manually open it.
Okay.
All right. See on line 8, Nodemon 2.04. All right. You're good, Gustavo. Just stay right there. Chris, are you good?
I don't think so. Hold on. Let me show you what I got.
Well, you're in a web sprint.
Oh. Yeah, because I thought that I CD.
So yeah, but it's not going to show it up on the side. Do code space dot.
Okay.
It should open a new terminal for you. Close out the one that you were in and go to the new one.
Okay.
And all right.
All right, good.
Yeah, you're on. Yeah, that's right. You're on Windows.
All right.
All right.
There we go.
So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a start script. See where it says scripts?
Mhm.
We're going to come over here to the end of this and put a comma, hit enter, double quotes, and start, colon, double quotes, Nodemon, index.js. And save it like that. All right. Next thing we need to do is create an index.js. You can do touch. You can come over here. I don't care how you do it. Create one there, but we need an index.js. And you can close that. And next thing we want to do is type npm start. And you should get this in yellow and then green.
I got errors.
Generally no way to get an error. So show me what you're working with.
All right.
So let's look at your JSON. All right. So don't you see that big squiggly and it doesn't match the rest?
Yes.
You gotta have a comma.
Okay.
And run it again. And it's all right. So you installed the wrong package. So now you got to go back, go to your terminal, and type in npm. Just use the terminal that's right there in front of you. That way you make less mistakes.
Okay.
npm rm. No, different words. npm will always be by itself, space. And now you have to get rid of node mod that you installed on line 14. So type it just like that.
Okay. And 14. Oh, 14. Node mod.
Now you have to install nodemon. npm I dash capital D nodemon. Not node mode. Now you gotta node mon. It didn't install because there's no such thing as node mode.
Okay. npm remove.
Nope, you don't have one because there is not one. You don't have to remove it. It didn't install it.
Okay.
Nope, you gotta have an I first.
I for install and then node mod.
It's mon, just like you typed it up. You just install, hit Control C. Nope. Now you gotta install. Remove it again.
Okay.
I mean, you typed it right on line 8.
Okay. npm dash capital D, and then
You should have an I, then dash D. It'll work the other way, but do it in the proper order.
okay.
Nodemon, Nodemon. Okay.
Sorry, guys.
Now run npm start.
Okay.
All right. So this allows us to write JavaScript in our index.js without having to go back and forth to index and look at the HTML and console log. So we can confirm that real quick. We can just type in a log and say hello. And when we save it, there it is. So test it, make sure it works.
So open the JSON.
No,
Type
in
hello?
index.js.
Oh.
You can't write JavaScript in a JSON.
Okay. Console log it.
Gustavo, did it work?
Oh, looks like yeah.
App crashed.
Hit save again. Control S. Share your screen. Because you can't print, you can't just type hello world in JavaScript. And you can't type a variable hello world with a space in it. Remember, it's a string. Otamon is really good software. If you do it right, 99% of the time, if it tells you it's broken, it's because something you did.
Okay.
Matt? Thumbs up if you got it.
So okay. So I had my JSON open and I tested it, and it is gone from my here. Let me show you. It is gone from my sidebar. I was using here, let me get rid of this. I was using the thing that Britt had us working on one time, but my JS file that I created is gone too. I don't know.
Well,
how
you
it
should be in
happened.
a brand new folder. You shouldn't be recycling things.
Oh,
Technology allows us to have access to technology for a reason. So did you
Okay.
create a JavaScript folder at all? And the
Yeah,
reason is she has different codes, so it'll conflict.
Oh, okay. All right. So I should go ahead and create a new directory.
Yes.
Okay.
Always start fresh unless we say otherwise.
Okay. Sorry about that. So, oh wait. I just want to CD into my desktop, if that's okay. No.
That's because you're below your desktop. You'd have to go up first.
Hold on. Let's give me some space. Clear that out. Oh.
Type PWD.
I was just reading the commands.
I don't know what you're in.
Yeah.
You're in
it
the
says-
node terminal. I don't know where you ended up, but just close out the whole thing and go to regular terminal and open. Yeah, because you can't use other stuff because they have different code that is set up to run what they're doing.
Oh, okay. All right. I got you. I am. Yes, I'm in farm to tables. Let me get out of there. Okay. And now I'm just in my Lambda school folder. It's mkdir. I'm sorry, I forget the rest.
Whatever folder name you want.
Oh, just anything. All right. I'll just say Zach project. I think it's spelled project, right?
No spaces, no capitals.
Oh, okay.
You're going to have all kinds of problems if that's like React won't run.
Okay. All right. So I did that. And I can CD into it. Okay. Code dot. Okay. And
You need to do your npm init -y. You got to do every step.
oh, okay. Just do that. Okay.
And you can't have a JSON until you do. So
Okay. All right. So
and we have to have the
npm
JSON
dash
in order
y.
to run it. Nope, npm init -y.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Now do npm I space dash capital D nodemon.
Okay.
While that's installing, go and open your package JSON. Don't change anything, just open it.
Okay.
All right, it's installed. Now go to your scripts. After line 7, put in a comma, and then in quotes do start, colon, and then, next line.
Oh, next line. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it'll break.
Comma.
JSON is very particular.
Okay. It says start colon.
But you got to be in quotes. See how it's red?
Oh. Mm-hmm.
There's no forgiveness with JSON. Nope. Quote, you got to close the quotes. Look at the one above you.
Oh. Oh, right. Got you. Okay.
And then then space and quotes.
Mm-hmm.
And nodemon index.js.
Okay.
Now save that, create an index.js. Now go down and hit npm start.
My terminal, right?
All right, now type in a console log and confirm that it shows up. All right.
Okay. And I can view it in the JSON or in the JSON, I guess.
No, JSON doesn't have anything to do with it. You can view it in your terminal. It was showing it right down there in your terminal.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right.
Otherwise, you have to create an index HTML page and go look at it in your console. This is just easier.
Right,
You don't have
okay.
to move around. All right. So you have to develop functional memory of syntax. So we're just going to do a bunch of syntax. We're going to start top to bottom. We're going to write some code. We'll comment it. We'll just keep writing so you can save this. All right. So 2 ways to write a variable. We're going to start there. Let name equal Zach, or const first is equal to base. All right. Those are the 2 ways you have to write a console. Now notice when you save it, it'll either run, or if you write bad code, it'll crash. And it'll give you some notes, and it will tell you it'll say unexpected or invalid token. And it shows you, hey, wait a minute, the problem is base. Okay, so that's what makes Node nice to work with. And I wish I could remember how to move this to the side. Let me see. Right pane. I'm going to move it over here. We don't need that. Just so that makes it a little easier for you guys to see what's happening in Node 1. All right. So remember, we are dealing with functional memory. Let's do a console log. And let's console log name. And when we save it, of course, we're going to get our name. Now, I will tell you a lot of the times, put some kind of key with it. When I say that, we're referring to this. Name is, oops, and then name. So now we have a way to verify what we're actually putting out. Because if we had something like this, let's say we had this going on, which we have a lot, makes it a lot easier to find which one you're referring to, right? Now, we don't need those right now, so we can comment them out. All right. You could also write that. You could say the same thing. You could do it like this. You can say, although it's less normal of convention, but sometimes you will see people that will do like this, where the key is on the right side. It's a little harder to figure out, but you can do whatever you need to do to make it obvious, right? And finally, with console log, you can also do multiple variables. So you could do it like this if you wanted to, if you had a bunch of things to put in, right? So if we had another variable here, happy is today. Oops, I don't know what the hell that was. So, and let's say we also wanted happy in here. So notice you can add multiple variables into one console log. Okay. So let's work with some of the simplest functions and methods. So an if statement. What is the structure of an if statement?
First, we name the function.
But that doesn't tell me structure. Those are just words. What's the actual structure?
Oh, if parentheses, and then conditional.
Nope. Conditionals go inside the parentheses, and there's still something else.
Oh, the curly braces.
Right.
Mhm.
So if you watch me write code, I would write like this. First thing I would do. Then I know my structure is correct. All right. So let's write a couple of different conditionals. So we have, let's say, name is exactly equal to Zach, but I'm going to modify this a little bit and say Zach. So is this going to run first off? We don't know. Of course not. All right, we're going to console log. Oops. We're going to console log Zach is true. So notice when I save it, it does not run. I mean, it runs. Notice it said starting node, clean exit before restart. So now it's telling you that anything after this was before a restart that we're going to do again. Right? So we need to think about our conditional. So how do we get name to lowercase? Because it has a capital, we want to keep track of it. How do we do that?
Oh, that's I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to Google it because I forget what it's called.
Was it dot to lowercase?
It's but tell me the whole thing. I mean, dot to lowercase, does that mean I type the word dot, or?
Yeah.
So that's how you want it, like this? Dot to lowercase?
No.
That's what you said.
As in period to
But where?
uppercase L in console log.
In console log? So you want to convert this to lowercase?
Yes.
What do we want to convert to lowercase?
The conditional name equals to Zach.
So we want to say what? Name dot to lowercase?
No, if dot to lowercase parentheses name equals Zach.
Okay. Okay, so if, now what do you want here?
No, outside the parentheses.
So tell me if dot, is that what you want?
Yeah, if and then dot to lowercase.
Like that?
No, to lowercase. There. Yeah, like that.
And it's telling you that there's an unexpected token. You cannot chain anything to an if statement.
Oh.
So what does the MDM doc say?
Saying waiting for file changes before starting.
Well, that means you didn't do something right.
Mm.
You broke it. But what does the MDM doc say? How do they say to do it?
In the console log.
Well, yeah, but that's because they're doing this. They're saying name, they're taking a variable, and then they want to return that variable to lowercase.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't want that. This is just a sentence. We want to say that it's true, right? We're just logging Zach is true. This is not what we want to be lowercase. What do we want to be lowercase?
The actual name.
The variable name.
Yeah.
Right? We want that to turn whatever's assigned to it to lowercase. And there's two places it could, so we only have it in two places on this page, line 1 and line 9. We could say, we look at it here and we say, okay, what happens if we do to lowercase here? Well, it runs like a champ, right? Typically, you want to lowercase it where you need it, not up here. Because what if we also said we wanted to have the sentence that said, is true? Well, we don't want to lowercase this up here because we want to keep it proper name cased. But for consistency purposes, we want everything to be lowercase to test it. Now, maybe we don't want that. Maybe it's a password and we want it to be exactly as it is. But in this case, we want to test to see if the name is Zach. And if it is, we want to return a value, a log that says that is correct, like what we get right here. So these workflows, you have to get in the habit of watching what's happening and thinking them through. If you look further into the MDM docs, there's a little bit more of information, but ultimately, what it's telling you is, if you read it, returns the calling string value converted to lowercase. So whatever string you want to be lowercase is where you apply to lowercase. All right, so let's think about an array. Let's do an array. And we're going to do an array of students. All right, so we're going to do students. And the array is going to be, so Chris, oops, Matt, and Gustavo. All right, I typed them all in lowercase, so it makes it easy to keep track of, but we're going to go ahead and do a second if statement. So set up your if statement, do the structure first, especially if you have a hard time getting lost. And we're still going to check it, though. We're going to say students dot to lowercase. That way we know for sure, just in case it happened to do this, because Matt is way cool elite, so he does his name like this. And we are going to say, since Matt is the cool one, we're going to say to Matt. Now it's going to break. And it says, wait a minute, why did it break?
We don't have a console log in there yet, right?
Console log won't break it. Look at your error message. Look at my error message. What does it say? Where does it say the problem is?
Conflict on this.
If you're following
App
along,
crash.
you should have the exact same error message as I do if you've been following along.
App crash, waiting for file changes before starting.
That's the end. That's just telling you what's happening. But go to the error.
Okay.
Scroll up.
Type error students to lowercase is not a function.
Yes. Why is, and it shows you, the line above it gives you a nice little arrow, a caret, that says, hey, wait a minute, to lowercase. That's where the problem is. Why is that a problem? Is students a string?
No, it's an array.
It's an array. How do we get it to tell us we want Matt in this case? How do we get Matt out of that array?
Through the index of 1.
Through the index of 1. Now it's no longer breaking. Of course, it's not printing anything because we don't have anything to print. We can say if student 1, and let's go ahead and do our console log. And we're going to say tick dollar parentheses student 1, right? Because that's what we want, is cleared for takeoff. Now it's going to come back and say, hey, wait a minute. Now why do we have a problem? What do you think? So let's remove this for a minute. Let's grab this out. So that works just fine. So where's the problem at? It's in student 1, right? So let's do a new console log where we can create another one and make it without having to mess around too much. So student 1. And this is where it's giving us a problem. Why are we getting a problem there? What do you think? I want you to pay close attention because I've made this error on purpose. I want you to look at it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was muted. I was saying, does it have to do with the fact that we're not giving it parameters?
You're making it far too complicated and not actually looking at the error message.
Oh, okay.
What does the error message say?
Student is not defined.
And it says not defined. What does that mean?
Like it just doesn't know what student is like equal to. Like I guess it doesn't know that students is an array.
You said it in part.
You said student, not students. The array is students.
There you go. So if we put
I didn't even notice that.
But that's the kind of thing you have to notice when you're in this environment, or you will lose your freaking mind. All right, so students will work. Matt is cleared for takeoff. Now notice that when I return this, it gets Matt's elite, cool, funky spelling when it prints it out. So how could we fix this? How should a name be properly written out? When we do a name, how should it be written? Think back to English class.
Capitalized?
Yeah, capitalized. So is there a way to capitalize that and clean up this funky T that Matt's so proud of? And if you don't know, MDM docket. How do I capitalize a word in JS?
Would it be a word or a string?
A word, string, however you want to search it. I mean, it's a string.
No, to uppercase.
To uppercase. Now, where do you want the to uppercase at?
In the console log.
And following
After
right
student.
Okay. To capitalize. Cap it all eyes. Oh, wait a minute. What did I screw up? It's not a function, which means I'm typing it.
To uppercase.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, let's see what happens. To uppercase. Oh, that's not what we want.
Students dot to uppercase in the index.
Well, this is what it's turning out. Is that how we want his name to be?
It's all capital, but we just want the first letter capitalized.
So how do we do that?
Reading. Okay. Still reading. Would we have to split? No.
Yep, we're gonna have to split. So let's make a name, cap name, we'll call it. And we're gonna get rid of this for now. We're gonna move this around. And we're just, oops. And so we'll call this cap name. All right, and I will put this up here.
You got a typo in name.
Yep, there we go. Okay. So how do we split? We're gonna do a dot split,
The
right?
string and then string dot split parentheses.
Mm-hmm. And how do we want to split it?
We want to split it by the first character.
Which is, how do we do that? So
Single quote mark and then would it be M, because we know exactly what name we're going for, but we want to make it universal.
yeah, we want to make it universal. So how do we split a range?
Capitalized first letter. No, that's our string. Char at. So it would be students dot char or car at, or no, yeah, char at in camel case.
Char
parentheses 0 and then dot to uppercase parentheses.
to uppercase. Let's see what you get. All right, so we got the capital M. Now what?
Can I ask what the I just missed it. What did the char at target? Does that just target the index of the actual like string?
The character at space 0, which is M.
Can you comma and then do like another figure to like alter the rest of the characters in that?
Well, we have to get the rest of the characters back.
Oh, okay.
So we could do a couple of things. When you want to, so when we look at this for a second, if we come here and so we come back here and we do split, for instance, right? So we're back here to getting math like this, right? But if we split and we say, let's see what's the easiest way to go about this. Okay. So let's say let's do cap name of 2. And actually, now we just do it this way. Actually, we'll just do it here because cap name is now what, an array?
Yes.
So if we do cap name of 2, 0, 1, 2, now we're getting undefined. So if we look at split, right, it says puts these strings, substrings into array and returns an array. But how come we're not getting the print out of an array? Because if we look at an array and we print it, we look at students, this is how an array prints out. And why isn't student at 1 when we do a split? Why isn't it? When we look at it like this, why isn't it? And if you look at your documents, the answer is there in the very first pane.
Should be name.
I'm sorry?
It should be a name instead.
I don't understand what it is that you're. It should be what should be name. But if you're looking at the MD, are you looking at the MDM documents right now? And if you're not, you should be. If you don't like looking at documents, this is a good time to go find a different career field, because you still don't owe your 30 grand. And it's one of the hardest things for students to do because it's so boring and it's so tedious. But probably a third of all of the rest of your life will be spent looking at documents for documentation. So you might as well get practice. If you notice on there, it says line 1, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. And on line 3, it splits it with a space. And it says, hey, the space gives us words. And the third word, or the word at index 3, is the fourth word, fox. If you go to the next line, it splits it with quotes with no space, and now we get characters. So if we put a space in there, and we console log, now notice, because we're choosing item 2 here, but let me get rid of this. Now we're getting the 4 letters of his name. So we could then say cap name at, right? So we could say cap name is equal to cap name at index 0 to uppercase. All right, we could do that. And if we, now we're, oops, I got to put, there we go. And so now it says, wait a minute, now we're broken again. This doesn't seem to work. Because now we're back to a function call because, there we go. So now we're back to our capital M. So we've made a long circle to get back to our capital M. But we also know that if we did it really old-fashioned, what happens if we do, say, this? Let's do cap name again. And the only way you figure these things out is if you do it. Hey, now we got a TA or an MA. And we could say, well, let's follow that same theory. Now, is this the best way to do it? The answer is no, it's not. But now we got that crazy cap. Well, let's go ahead and finish it out so we can look at it. All right, so now we get his whole name again. I'm going to word wrap this. So we could do, if we needed to, I mean, very longhand, not pretty, but it will solve our function for now. We could say 2 lowercase for everything that follows it. Now, of course, the problem here is what? What if they have more than or less than 4 letters in their name, right? But this works for Matt nobody else, but at least we have some idea of what's happening. And this is now coming out right. So this is one way to build it. You can clean it up later, and you can start to do edge cases later. And there's actually a whole process. There's one called .join. I'm going to leave it for you to look up because you need to learn how to do it. Stripping out one letter and capitalizing and then putting everything back again, really important. So we're going to make a note right here. I would say this is like 10% done, but look at .join, and that will be something for you to look at down the road. All right, let's comment this out. Now, we're still working with this console log, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring it down here. I mean, this array, just so we have more, so it's easier from where we're working with. How do we move through an array? How do we look at each part of an array?
The index.
Okay, well, this is true, but we want to do it. How do we do it programmatically so that it will go through all of them?
With a loop.
A what?
A loop?
A loop, yes. So we're going to do a for loop again. So there are multiple parts to a for loop. We have our for, we have where our 2 parts are going to go. I mean, our 3 parts are going to go, and our body. So the first part of a for loop is always basically the same thing. Let I equal something. This is where we're starting. This is our start. The second part is our conditional. And I'm going to loop through the students array. So I'm going to say where I is less than students dot length, right? Because I want to get all of them. And finally, I'm going to do my incrementer. So if we decided to call I Bob, we would just change the 3 I's to Bob. I is called I for index, by the way, since that's what we're using to keep track of our array is the index. So now we want to, now notice it's throwing a fit, right? Well, student.length is not a function. So where is the mistake? Because you're going to do these a lot. So you need to begin to recognize them. Tells you that it is not a function. What does that mean?
It's not defined.
No. If it's not defined, it'll say not defined. Dot length is a method or a property of an object specifically for type array. There is no no parentheses with dot length.
Oh.
So when it tells you it's not a function, that means the parentheses are the problem. All right. Now we're going to start with a simple loop. And I want you to console log out so that it shows all of the names. I want you to do it first.
Okay.
You got it, Matt?
Yes, we were just trying to display all the names, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we only want it to do it once, right? Because I got it to do it 3 times.
All right. Well, that is probably not what we want, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you probably did something incorrect. Gustavo?
So, working on-
These simple for loops, if statements, they have to become second nature. So I'm guessing, Chris, what you did was something like this, maybe?
Yep. And then if I put in an index, I'll get whatever's in the index, but I'll get it 3 times. So would I want to do return instead of console logs? That way it ends.
I don't know why you're getting 3 times. What does your code say?
It says, oh, restarting due to changes, clean exit, restarting due to changes, starting node index.js, and then it gives us the array 3 times. If I put a number in the index, it'll give me that index 3 times because it'll loop through the length of the array. But then when I put I for index, then it just gives me
You
the
sure
1.
you're putting I and not 1?
Yeah. I mean, I got it now to work.
Yeah, because with an I in there, it will only go through each one time because of the very nature of how a loop works. It can't go backwards
Okay.
and print the same thing over and over again. Unless you did this. Then you'll get Matt 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're telling it to no matter what it does. And you can see this. So if we say, make this easy, we'll do it like this. And then you can see how it was that you were doing. So when it loops through on 0 time, you're telling it print Matt 1 time, print Matt, which it did. Then it increments to 1, but Matt is still the 1. And then again at 2, same process again. But if in fact you have an I in there, it's impossible for it because this incrementer is going to change and it's going to force I to become something new. And so it cannot, by the very laws of programming and mathematics, duplicate the same thing unless you made an error in how you set it up.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So everyone have that? Not the additions that I've made. I'm just going to leave them there, although it's not a bad way to look at things to remind you how to do it if you want.
Yep, I'm there.
So we're going to customize this for loop. But we're going to write another for loop because none of you wrote it fast enough the first time, which means it's not in brain. So we're going to write it again. And we're going to do the same thing. Let I equal 0, right? I is less than, and we want our students dot length. Oops. And then finally, we are going to do our incrementer. If I can ever find a semicolon, there it is. And this time we're going to do some modifications to it. So now we want to print out a sentence that works with it. So I don't care what the sentence is, but console log a sentence that uses the name and use string interpolation. So the ticks, the dollar, and the curlies. And let's see, I'm going to say all right, so you should be getting a printout of the names with each of the sentences. Everyone have that? Huh?
Yes. I accidentally did the 1 again, but no. Okay.
Yes, but no.
Uh-oh. Hold on. I got something missing somewhere. Yeah. backticks. Oh, I didn't console log it the right way. I forgot my parentheses.
Yep. I got it.
Gustavo?
Yeah.
Matt?
Yes, sir.
All right.
There we go.
So now let's modify this. Let's create a let, and we're going to call it message. And then we're just going to take this whole thing exactly as it is right here. We're going to cut it out, and let's make it our message. And we're going to console log message. Make sure that it still works. Everyone still good?
Catching up. Okay.
Gustavo?
I'm good.
Matt?
I'm good now.
All right.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, so let's make this a little more interesting, because surprisingly, you will do this kind of thing very often, but let's add a bunch of names to our array. We want it to be more. I want to add Frank and Bob. I'm going to add Brittany, and I'm going to add Megan, and who else do we want to add? I don't know. I can't think of anybody else off the top of my head. Of course, George. Whether it's a boy's name or a girl's name doesn't make any difference, because George Foreman says all kids are George.
Mhm.
All right, so when you get a printout, you should have all these extras. But if you did what we showed, you should also have this nice indexing right here, right? Tells you what index they're at. That's pretty sweet. We're going to comment that out because we don't need it right now. So you should be getting, let's go comment out this as well, so we don't have anything extra. So you should be getting each person's name with the coolest or whatever sentence that you gave them. So let's think mathematically. Let's do some mathematics that you're going to encounter. So let's think. All right, let's do an if statement. So we're going to say if, and inside of our conditional, we're going to say if the index is even, then we are going to print something. If it's odd, we're going to do print a different message. So we're going to make this. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say even. And I'm going to say if your number is even, then you are the coolest. If you're, let's get over here, wait a minute, this. And if you're odd, so we'll say odd, then is the oddest yet. And we're going to put I guess we'll do that. All right, so now in our message, we're going to have a deal. So if we console log our message, so we can comment this out for a moment. Now we're just back to getting their names, right? Because the message is only the name. And I'm going to move this down here, just because that's going to be our final. And let's see, I'm going to change this. I'm going to call this name. And so in our message, then I could say name odd, for instance, and it will kick out is the oddest. So we know that it does work. All right. I don't want to console log anything at the time. So let's look at our if statement. So how do we make a determination if a number is even or odd?
Math dot. Hold on.
I'll give you a hint. It's called a modulus. If you haven't been in school in a while, you probably forgot.
Yeah.
And the modulus is the remainder of something, and it's written with a percent sign. So we can say if I modulus 1. So what happens if we're testing for odd or even? What options do we have? So if we divide the number 2 by 1, what's our remainder?
And be 2.
So does that make 2 an odd or an even number?
Odd.
Right. But if we divide 2 by 2, what's our remainder?
1.
0, right? 2 goes into 2 one time, leaves us with a 0 remainder.
A remainder, yeah.
So let's say, what happens if we say 1 modulus, because all we're looking at is the remainder, is equal to, we're just going to try it. We'll test it. Let's say odd. So we're going to use odd. Let's go ahead and grab our console log and move it in here. And here we're going to put in a new string. And I'm just going to say name space odd. So what happens when we run that? Well, problem, right? Oops, we don't want this. Well, that doesn't tell us anything, right? So using that methodology doesn't work. And the reason that this doesn't work is because odd is a sentence, right? It's a string. But we want it to be a 1. So anything divided by 1 will leave some kind of remainder. Let's see what happens, right? So if mod 1 equals 1, so if 1 divided by 1, that gives us 0 as our remainder. What happens if we do 2? Oops. Oh, hey, wait a minute. So if we do 2, we get half, right? And let's look at it. So the first one that comes up is math, right? If you're not sure of the math on how to do it, just test it. So we could say this is 0. This is 1. So if we divide the number by 2, so if we divide 1 by 2, what is our remainder? Our remainder is 1. That means it's an odd number. Now we can check that. So which are the even numbers? 0 is 0 and odd or even?
Odd. No, 0 is even.
Typically it's considered even, right? But we know for sure 2 is going to be an even number, 0, 1, 2. We know that 4 is an even number. So if this was a different order, right? So if we said, well, if it is 1, what happens? Oops. Nothing is happening. And we think about it, we're like, okay, wait a minute. But we know 2 works, and that gives us an odd. What if we do an even number equals an even number? Well, that's a problem. And so you can set and brute force your way through it. But ultimately, we already have the solution in that, oops, too many Z's. So we know that the number divided by 2, right, gives us a remainder of 1 is an odd number. So we can simply say else and console log, and we can just use our same kind of methodology. We can say name even. So that's helpful. So Chris, which is a 0 index, he's cool. Matt, he's a 1, he's odd. Gustavo is cool because he's 2. Frank is odd, etc. Well, that's kind of interesting. Those kind of things will come in handy down the road. What other options can we do? Well, let's say that we want to confirm, in fact, what their number is, right? So we could build this out. We could say, let's do this. Let's just add a placeholder so we know what line it is. And we could say I. So now when we run, interesting. And that confirms exactly what we had believed before. 1 is odd, 3 is odd, 5 is odd, 7 is odd. Cool. That's what we're liking to see. This. Oh, now we're in nice order. 0, even, odd, even. So it makes it very easy to confirm what we're doing here. But let's say, for instance, that we want to do something else with it. What if, let's do contains. So how does contains work?
The string dot contains parentheses.
All right, so let's do a new if statement. Let's say if, because everyone needs practice writing those. And I'm just going to put a console, well, I'm going to try to put a console log in there if it allows me, just so that it's a placeholder. And so let's say if students, index I dot contains. So let's say if your name contains an A, then we're just going to print out the obvious and say contains A. Now, is that correct structure?
Looks like it. I don't see anything wrong with it. You may run it.
It crashed.
Oh, you use parentheses instead of a tick, right? For console log, in the console log.
So
Nope, it's not it.
no. So how do we use contains?
Look it up right now.
Node dot contains returns an element.
Node dot contains. Okay.
Oh, I was gonna ask, are these similar to includes? And
So contains, if you looked at your document, is specifically deals with a page, a web page. Thus,
Okay.
the node.body. So every other language you're going to come across, it is doing exactly what we were looking at, right? So you have to look it up if you're not positive. And even if you are positive, usually you look it up anyway. So that's not going to work. What do we want? So how do we do includes then?
Yeah, I was gonna say, can we try include? So it'd be
We
yeah,
almost had it.
I'm just making sure. Yeah, dot includes and
Such.
I think you need parentheses after it.
Yes.
Okay,
So now it's working.
sick.
But what contains an A? Right? Now we can kind of pare it down. We can look at what's above it and we can say, oh, well, Matt contains an A. Gustavo contains an A. Frank. Bob?
Is not. Chris is not. So it doesn't
Nope.
put anything out.
George does it, right?
Megan
So we do have some blanks, but how can we just double check that? How can we make it nicer? We can use our coding skills and say, well, what do we have? Student at I contains or includes and, oops, move that back. There we go. Includes and A. But let's continue this out. Let's say if, let's write another if statement. I'm going to go ahead and put a console log in here as well. So let's just write it. I don't know what that shortcut is. It's pissing me off. All right. So this time we're going to say if it includes an A, we have a statement for it. But if it does not include an A, we want to say, hell yeah, no A found, right? So how do we get it to say if it does not include an A? Now, let's talk about this conditional on line 50 real quick. What is this conditional really saying? Even though it says students at index I includes an A, there's actually more to the conditional. What is the rest of the conditional?
So it's running through every element in the array and checking it
Yes,
just
that's because
for
of the for loop.
Mm.
But this actually says is equal to true. Now, if we save it and run, it doesn't like this, of course, because there's no conditional in there. It will work the same way. But we don't have to include this. But we could say false. Well, now it says Chris includes an A and Bob includes an A. Well, that's not exactly what we want, but it does give us some help. But we don't have to have that. But if it makes it easier for you to remember, type that sucker in.
Did that just give us every? Oh, never mind.
So how do we get this to say if it does not include an A? Does not include an A.
Can we use the exclamation point?
We can bang it.
Okay.
So let's bang, right?
Oh, that just straight up just goes in the front, and that just means everything after this is.
We're gonna try it.
Oh, okay.
All right. Oops. Oh, it says, wait a minute. I jacked up because I forgot to put true up here.
I did mine. Instead of the 3 equals, I did the bang double equal, and I got it to run the hell yeah no A found on the odds or the.
So Yeah, so this is
Even-
interesting, right? We're gonna look at the different ways that we can write this. So I said if students dot includes a does not happen, if it does not, hell yeah, no A found. But you could also write that, and we're gonna do it for practice. Oops. Hold on. I want this. My fault. I don't know why I did that because I wasn't thinking. No A found. Okay. Let's write another if statement because I know you need to practice. And this line will just copy right here, the console log. We're only copying the console log. Everything else you should be typing. We could say students at index, right, includes an A as does not equal true. And I'm going to comment this one out real quick. And so now, wait a minute here, right? So wait a second. If it does not, let's do this. There we go. And so, hell yeah, no A found. We could also, and since you need practice, let's write this again. We can also say if, and we could say students at I, right, includes is equal to false. We also get that same thing. So all three of these are correct ways to write that negated if statement. Pick one that pick a style you like and stick with it. As you learn and you become more comfortable, then you can become more flexible. Personally, I like this one the best, so that's what I'm going to use, but use whichever ones feel good for you. So let me know when you've got all four of those if statements completed and they're all working. Test and make sure.
Yep. Mine went through all the time.
All right.
Yeah, for all different iterations.
The different conditional statements.
Yeah.
Okay. Because the next one we're going to start adding some extra goodies into the mix.
Okay, I'm good.
Gustavo?
No, it's currently giving me an error.
It's what?
It's giving me a reference error saying name is not defined.
Then that means that you're using a name somewhere, probably inside your includes, doesn't have string quotes around it, I would guess. That fix it?
No. I'll show my screen real quick.
All right. Share. All right, so it's pointing at name, and it's telling you you don't have a name because you call it message. There's no name variable, so it can't print anything. So change line 36 to name. Or change 39 and 41 to message. Because you can't print what's not there. Save it. There you go. So when it says not defined, that means that is not a variable. All right. So now let's get a little more creative with whichever negation that you chose. So we're going to say if it does not include an A, and let's do an and, the student index includes, let's see, a O. Let's make it an O. And so now we're saying if it does not include an A and it includes an O, we're going to say, hell yeah, A not found, but O rocks forever. And if we look at that, we should only get 2, right? And that's because Chris is the only other one that does not have an A in it. And he does not have an O, so he does not rock forever. Even though I think he's a musician. Sorry for your luck. So we're going to fix this a little bit. So do you understand how we got this double statement going so that we can be even more discriminatory in the returns that we get? Now, what we could do, just out of giggles, I'm going to let you copy and paste this one. So let's copy this one real fast. And this one, we're going to say, we're going to add a third one. And we're going to say, if it does not include an A, and it includes an O, right? But let's change this to negates. And we're just going to negate that. What happens? So here, we're going to negate it. Come on, negate for me. I would appreciate that. There we go. And for Chris. So now when we run it, okay, cool. But let's make it even more complicated so that we get to. And we're going to say if, and so instead of and, we're going to use the or operator. So let's, oops, that's not what I wanted. I don't need all of those. I have a bad habit of doing that when I do pipes. Okay, so we're going to say if it includes an A, does not include an A, or it includes a O, or let's do students at I is directly equal to Chris. Now we'll run it again, and now we've made it even one step more complicated, right? Because we're saying, okay, if it does not have an A, now let's make it even one step more complicated. So when you have ors, it means that only one thing has to be true, and it'll run. It considers it true. But let's change this. Let's say if it does not include an A, and it includes an O, or it includes Chris. Now we're going to, and we'll run it again, and we still get for Chris. Now, what we should really do is on this one, because we're using a name, we should say 2 lowercase, just to make sure that we don't have Chris up here that's, you know, like Matt wanting to be elite. And that way we still get the same result. Now you should be able to set and come up with a million different ridiculous if statements that, and let's do another one. All right, let's make this even more interesting. So what if we said, all right, so let's do our if, and we're going to go ahead and console log something. And let's say, so if students at I includes, no, let's see. If students at I, oh yeah, let's make this really interesting. Okay, so let's do a split. And we want to split. How do we split and get the second letter? So if we do split 2, oops, let's go to 1. Does that give us the second letter? What do you think?
Oh, hold on. I gotta look it up because I'm not sure.
So look it up. That's great. You can also, if you're unsure, of course, you can always just comment that out for a second, and you could console log it. You could say, hi, console log students at I dot split, there we go, at 1, and see what it gives you. Oh, wait a minute. Interestingly enough, it gives us 1, right? That's not what we want. So we want to split here. What does that give us? Oh, well, that gives us a split of everybody's name based on I. That's kind of cool.
It does look kind of cool.
And then we could say, so we can assign that to a variable. Can we, and this is what's interesting. Do you think we can do this? What do you think? Can we get the second letter in the split doing it that way?
I don't think so.
Look at it. Check it out. Let's see. Let's make this name. Come on, mouse. Help a dude out. All right, so we're going to say split to make it nice and obvious. Check it out.
Oh, word.
Oh, man, now we're doing some serious chaining. But let's just go ahead and now can we lowercase it? So let's make this actually, let's see. Let's go change everybody and give everybody a capital. Or not everybody, but let's do a couple of them. All right, so we got a capital. Can we now lowercase that? What do you think? 2 lower, is that going to work? Holy crap.
Oh.
So we can come back here to our if statement. And we could say, so let's grab this whole thing right here. Control C. And let's put this in here. Control V. So let's say that if student at I, after we split it and we take the second character, make it lowercase, if it is equal to, and we're going to post this, I plus 1, what's going to happen? Oh, finally, we got ourselves a break, right?
So index plus 1 would basically just be
Whatever the number is, plus 1 more on top of it.
Oh, and it would just keep going like that. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So finally, we've reached a break. So we did some pretty cool things with it, but we finally reached a break, right? And the problem that we have is if we could do this, right? Because it's going to equal itself.
Mm.
And so we have a little bit of different issue when we're dealing with this addition inside here. in this instance because of the way that we have the I. Now, what we could do is, if we wanted to, we could say I. So we could let I equal I. Well, I can move it this way. Plus 1. No, it won't let us do that inside. Sorry, got JavaScript in my brain. I mean Python in my brain. Plus equals. I can't think what it is. My brain is fried. Okay, so now we can then put I in here. And it's saying, wait a minute, we can't read this. What's going on? So what's happening is it can no longer, the split is where we're having a hard time. And so even though you can do some crazy stuff with this, there are limits, right? So let's get rid of that. And let's get rid of this. But let's say if students at I, after we split it at 1, 2 lowercase includes, let's see, who do we have in H? Now that's going to be true, right? Let me see here. We don't need this extra. Okay. I got to clean up my code. I hate it when it gets too funky. Okay. So now we can look at it. We can say, well, oh, nice. And let's say this is also for Chris. So if we go and find Chris, we also get, this is also for Chris because he is the only one, I do believe, that has an H in the second character. But that's a pretty crazy chain of things right there.
It's really cool, I gotta say, because sometimes I feel like I'm putting too much on like a single line. And like you're really showing me that you can actually give like a lot of commands in one go.
Yeah, because I mean, and this one, so we have our student array 1. We're splitting it 2. We're then grabbing that array that it makes fictitiously because we're not actually putting it anywhere. Then we're lowercasing it, and then we're checking. So we got 5 different things we're doing in that one chain of events. But you notice we didn't build it that way. We built it one piece, added, one more piece, and added one piece, and we just kept adding till we get to a point. If you tried to build that out from memory, I guarantee you're going to screw it up. Because it's so hard to remember. But if you do it in pieces, then it's not too bad.
Do you like personally focus on fitting in as much, I guess, like coherent stuff in one line as you can, or do you not?
I wouldn't
really
say I focus on it. If it makes sense, I do it. If it doesn't, I don't.
Okay.
But in this case, how would we get all of this in an if statement otherwise, right? So let's look at how we would do that. You could say, let's do our if statement. I'm going to grab this console log right here so that I can comment this one out. So we could say students I a student at I, and we split it. Wow, I don't even know how we could do that in an if statement without doing a variables assign.
Wait, what were we trying to split?
Just the words. We're trying to duplicate this longhand.
Oh, okay.
I can't even think of a way to do it. I mean, it would require a lot of and statements. If students not split at location and two lower, yeah, I don't even know, to be honest with you. I can't even think of a way to do it longhand. Scrap that.
Would it not? Can I ask though? So like, if you did want to do that, not putting like if else under it, it wouldn't do that. Basically, what we're trying to achieve.
No, because an if else is going to be one or the other.
Oh,
And this is
that's going to be
taking this section, and so you'd have to say if so students at split at 1 and students 1 to lowercase and students at I includes H, and then give a, so it would
Okay,
have
now-
to, it would look more like this.
right. Okay, I got you. That's what you meant by a bunch of ants.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that a bad thing? Is that considered ugly? If we have to do something like that?
No.
Okay.
I mean, if you have to do something like that, like this one, there's no way for us to do 2 different includes in that format, right? So I can't really think of a way to negate one side and a positive of the other. That's about the only way I can come across I can think of doing it.
Gotcha.
So sometimes you just got to do a little bit of experimenting and try it out. But like I always say, do it small pieces and make it work. Once you have it working and you've done all the small pieces, you probably understand it well enough that you can start to clean it up if there's a way to clean it up. I'm trying to think if there was any other. So let's look at objects real quick, and then we'll call it a day. So we've done a lot here. Actually, we need to do function, and then we'll do object. So this runs every single time we tell it, or we reload the page, right? Every time we save, it runs. And to stop that, we can, to control it, we can create a function. And so I'm just going to cut it out for a second, and I'm going to create a function, and I'm going to call it lot o stuff, because there's a lot of stuff happening there. And I'm going to create my function, and I'm going to use an arrow function, and then I'm just going to paste this right back inside it. So now we have this monstrous function called lotto stuff, because there is a lot of stuff happening there. And we want to be able to control it, right? We don't want it to run every time. We only want it to run when we tell it to. And so that's why you use a function, so that you have control. Now, is this going to run? So when I save it, no output happens. And there's 2 reasons for that. What's the first reason, or one of the 2 reasons?
You're not actually calling the function.
We didn't invoke it. So let's go down and invoke it. And lot o stuff.
Parentheses, right?
Okay. And now we get this run. Now it's interesting that when I run it, it just spits everything out, right? Why is it spitting everything out? When you guys were having so many problems, say on Friday or Thursday, why is this running as soon as I call it?
We don't have a return that actually stops it. It just keeps running, right?
Well, that is part of it. And the other thing is that it's calling an array, but we're not passing. Now, if I tell this that I want students, what's going to happen? Students. So now when I save it, let me get over here. Oh, wait a minute. Now we get a crash. And it starts giving us all these problems. It says, wait a minute. Hey, students. It's giving us a deal. It says, cannot read properly, length is undefined. A lot of students. So why is this suddenly undefined? It's been working constantly.
Because it's just the array of the actual function. It's not, we didn't put the parameter in when we invoked it, so it doesn't know to look at the array.
Exactly. So if I do students, now it runs. Because it becomes, students becomes a parameter without any argument in it. It just becomes a placeholder. And if that's confusing you, what you can do is you can come over here and you can say control D, 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 and call this array and save it, and it still runs because now we're passing it the array students, and everything that was student in here, students, becomes array. And then this is just our placeholder, whatever we want. That's a really important concept that you have to get your head around. That when you have a function, whatever, this doesn't make any difference, but everything has to match inside here. And then when you put in the parameter, that becomes whatever this name is in every single instance inside that function.
So like we could make another array and have it be like staff, and it would be, staff names, and then we just put that in the parameter at the bottom, and it would change, right?
Okay,
like that's
so
the idea of what we're
staff,
going
we
for.
got Zach, we got Jackie, we got Buddy, we got Leslie. Oops. Okay, so now we can come down here. We change this to staff. And we run it. And now we get, oh, hey, what do you know? Coolest yet, because I got an A. And it's split there on the A with our crazy contraption. Jackie is odd, but it does include an A. Buddy is the coolest yet because he's even, but he does not include an A, right? Leslie is the odd. So yeah, now we've made it where it's flexible.
That's true. That's true.
Okay.
Does everyone understand that?
I understand it a lot better now than I did before.
And the question is still, do you understand it?
Yeah, I can. I mean, I'm going to hold on to this code to reference it. I know I get it now doing it with you. But
So just remember that the parameter, everything inside the function has to match the parameter name so that all the arguments are the same. And then whatever you pass it, that's what it becomes.
right.
And we can further demonstrate that if you just to make it more exciting for you. Hold on, let's see. Let's do control D D D D D D D D D D D D D. We're gonna call this Matt. So now it all runs exactly the same way because Matt becomes our parameter. Matt. But the second we pass it this argument of staff, every single place that says Matt becomes staff dot. Right? So this is only relevant inside of the function. Gustavo?
Yeah, I'm fully grasping it. Just gonna study these as well. Keep it as
Okay.
reference.
Chris?
Yeah. I mean,
Alright.
yeah.
All right, so let's do objects real quick. Let's do an object. So I'm just going to comment this out. Now, the nice thing is I just comment out this one line and nothing else is running, right? Because we're no longer invoking. So let's do an object. We're going to call it lambda. And we're going to do an array of objects. And we're going to say, we're going to call it course. And so we have web dev. And let's say time, let's say students. And let's say that there's 1,100 students. Now we're going to do a second one, and we're going to call that course data science. We're going to say students. We're going to say that there's 334 of those. And we're going to do one more, and we're going to say course, and that will be UX. And we'll say students. And there's 156. All right, let's start with the console log. So how do we find out how many students there are in data science?
Index 1. So lambda bracket 1.
All right. So we say lambda bracket 1. What?
Yeah.
Just like that?
Yeah.
So that gives us the entire object.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to know specifically, we want to know how many students there are inside that key value pair. So remember, the key is students, the value is whatever's inside there.
Okay.
So how do we get the student count by itself?
Would you just say dot students?
Hey, look at you.
I'm telling you.
Together, bouncing the ideas.
Yeah, this knowledge is just here right now. This is it.
I'm good. I quit. I'm leaving on top. It's kind of like me and magic. You know, I owned a comic book store for many years. Well, I had a coffee shop and then a comic book store that was beside it.
Dude, I just found out I have a comic that's worth almost $600. It's selling for on eBay right now.
Don't let your kids read it. And anyone that eats Frito-Lays.
You do it.
Because they'll be greasy hands in case.
Oh yeah, it's never been out. So I'm like,
because no one can eat just one, so therefore you're going to get all greasy. No, but I played Magic 3 times. I won 3 times. I retired undefeated, undisputed champion of the store because nobody else could say they were undefeated. Boom. And I did what Evander Holyfield and everybody else should have. You retire on top.
Yep. It's like gambling. You walk away when you're winning.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so then same thing if we wanted to find the students of UX, we'd do lambda bracket 2, and it would pop out, right? Yeah.
156. All right, so let's do a for loop. Because I know you need practice with for loops.
Okay.
So we say for, put in our parentheses, get our curlies in there. And we're going to say let I equal 0. Right? And then we're going to say where I is less than. Now we got a problem. Because how do we get a length of an object? This is where it gets complicated because the standard systems stop applying. We could try it. We could say lambda.length, and we can do an incrementer. And we can just say, for now, we just want to console log the I. And notice we get the console log of I 1, 2, 3 times, right? But what you have to be careful of is, let's say that you have the situation of the object, right? This is an array, right? So we can use an array method. But if I were to put 1 here, notice it no longer works. It doesn't give us how many key value pairs are in there. So you have other things you have, and it's there's a keys, there's a value, there's an index, different things that go with objects. But just remember, we can use this length function because we have an array. And inside that array, it has 3 objects. But if you had a situation that was like this, let's just say lambda 2, that is an object, and course fun and students, well, we know students hate having fun, so we have 0 students. And we try to do that same thing, nothing will happen. It no longer works. Dot length is for an array, not objects. And this works because we have an array of objects. And you're going to hear that a lot, and it may take a while for it to really sink in until you've been beating your head against the wall trying to figure out why things won't work.
Okay, so an array is made up of objects, right?
No. In this case, it's made up of objects.
Okay.
These objects here. Up here, it's this array is, where is it at? Strings. You can have an array of strings, objects, and numbers if you wanted to. But an object, this is an object when it's inside the curlies, and it has a key and a value pairing. The array objects do not work inside of here. And so it's important that you get a hold of that.
Okay.
If it's got box brackets, it'll work on the box brackets. It will not work on the curly brackets. Okay, so but here, so let's look at this. So we know we can log out the numbers of times it loops, 0, 1, 2, because that looped 3 times because there's 3 objects inside the array. There's 3 indexes, right? 0, 1, 2. And so what can we do with it? Can we print out the names? What do you think?
Yes. Oh, like you mean the courses?
Yeah. Or the students. Yeah. Any of the information. How would we do that?
Is that going to be dot course or student again?
Lambda I or lambda bracket I dot course.
Yeah. See, so it's similar, right? But it works on how we get the information out of the, and if we do that, now we get all of our, we just cannot cycle through an object like this the same way we can cycle through a loop. And so we have different ones. We actually have for each and different thing. Dot map, we started getting into some other things on how to get that information out. If it's in an array, however, life is not too bad. All right, so let's customize this. Let's make this a little nicer. I'm going to cut that for a second. And I want to say course has I'm just going to paste that in there and change this. Students. So web dev has 1,100. Has 1,100 what? Students. I got to go do some financial aid. Yeah, you got to fill out your paperwork every year.
Fun stuff, fun stuff.
Oh, yeah, loads of joy. So now we can make the sentences. Now, what happens if here we have working? And we say that 8 are working, right? All of this works the same. But what happens if we do and lambda, oops, and we're going to do I again, right? Because we want it to loop. And then working. Ooh, I'm going to sneeze. Are working. So now we have this issue that says, wait a minute. Well, here this one works fine, right? 8 of them are working. But here we have this jacked up portion. So in JavaScript, you have this thing and it's called a ternary. And a ternary is basically an if statement that's written completely different. And the way that it's written, it is written as such that you have your condition, question mark, true, the result of true, so whatever you want it to do when true, colon, and then when false. And when you start getting into React, you're going to use this ternary a lot because inside of JSX, it makes the some things like if statements don't work the same. Hold on one second. My boss is sending me a message because she just would rather send messages than by voice. So I got to listen to it. Hold on one second. And her question was, are you doing JavaScript and are they getting anything out of it? Like, you can just send that to me in text so that I don't have to stop what I'm doing. Okay, so this is called a ternary. So ternaries are really cool. Let's make up a practice one. Okay, so let's say if we're going to say if lambda, let's console log this. And we're going to say, so if lambda student, so if lambda at I, oops, hold on, we got to move this inside because it's not going to know because it needs to loop, right? We got to put that right there. Okay. So lambda student at I is true, and then we're going to have a false. So if lambda student at I is true, and what we're specifically looking for is working, right? Isn't that what we called it? Yeah, working. So if working is true, now what does it mean to be true in this case? There has to be something there, right? We say, well, if lambda at I is working, then we're going to say yes, working. Otherwise, we say no, not working. So notice that when we come to our first one, it goes through our loop. Let's just put a position in here at index I. So at index of 0, right, that's our first object here, we have a working. But when we get to the next one, it says, no, it's not working at 1 because we don't have any students there, right? So we can actually do this. So if it's true, Control C, we're going to say all of this. To there. And otherwise, we're going to say all of this, but we're going to stop right here. And let's see where I made a mistake. And as missing. And so, as you can see, setting it up like this can get very tedious. Well, we can skip this for a second. I'll show you why. So what we would normally do is we would say, let yes equal Control X. And then we're going to say let no equal, and we'll paste that one, and we'll get rid of this extra stuff that is not needed. And then we would say inside of our ternary, so our console log, we could say, again, we do our our JSX invocations there. We could say, so lambda at I, right, dot working. And then if it's true, we're going to say yes. And then if it's false, we're going to say no. And now it will print Web Dev has 1,100 students and 8 are working. Data Science has 334 students and UX has 154 students. So we were able to use conditional logic without a bunch of if statements. This is our entire conditional logic right here. Pretty sweet, huh?
Pretty overwhelming, but a few more times.
So look up ternaries, make your notes, use them every single chance that you can, and they'll start to become second nature. But they're incredibly powerful, incredibly beautiful. And so we could actually come back here and let's do this one, for instance. Because if we wanted an else statement to go along with this, we would say else and console log. I'm just going to put a bunch of no-nos here so we know, right? And of course, we have to invoke that. Let me comment this out for a second. And then we can invoke our function. And so there's our nose, right? That's our negative. But we could also do the exact same thing and say mat I dot includes A. So if it includes it, we're going to say this. And if it does not, then we're going to say this. And notice we get the exact same thing. So this replaced this.
That's awesome.
Okay.
It's kind of ternary.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to look at it a few times before it clicks, but I'm seeing
It takes a while. But as you begin to, so when you start writing if statements, think about this, because it's the condition, what you do when it's true, what you do when it's false. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here. Let me stop. Well, any questions before I stop, just in case? And then I'll upload this video to YouTube. It'll only be like 6 million hours long. And you guys can reference it should you so choose.
I shall choose.
I will choose as well. Thank you, sir.
So what I would recommend you do is you create a README. You then take the YouTube link and post it in the README. So that way you have all of this self-contained, and when you get some time, you can come and look at it, go find it in a YouTube, but the YouTube is attached to your project. Chris, better off, equal, worse than?
Better off.
With a little bit of mind brain explosions?
Yeah, a little bit.
Gustavo?
But
Yeah, I'm a lot better off than where I was hours ago.
Matt?
I'm starting to feel the eye pain you were talking about, but I'm way better off, man.